My cousin sent the family group chat a clip of them mocking me. Freeloader? Please, he's just our wallet. They didn't realize I was in the chat. I stayed silent until the rent, car note, and credit cards all went unpaid the next month. I, 32M, thought I had a good relationship with my family. Growing up, we were close-knit, and even after everyone scattered across the country for jobs and relationships, we maintained our bond through a family group chat. It was supposed to be our way of staying connected, sharing photos, making plans, celebrating milestones. What I didn't realize was that it had become something else entirely. The message notification popped up on my phone during my lunch break. My cousin had shared a video in the family chat, and I almost didn't watch it. I was swamped with work, reviewing financial reports for the investment firm where I'd built my career over the past decade. But something about the preview made me pause. The video showed my cousin's living room, where several family members had gathered for what looked like an impromptu get-together. I recognized the voices immediately: my younger brother, 2 cousins, and my uncle. They were laughing, drinks in hand, having what seemed like a great time. Then I heard my name. My uncle was in the middle of telling some story, gesturing wildly with his beer bottle. He mentioned how I'd covered his mortgage payment last month when he was between jobs. The group erupted in laughter, but not the kind you'd expect when someone mentions a generous gesture. My cousin chimed in, saying something about how I was always so eager to help, like I was trying to buy their love. My brother added that I probably thought they actually respected me for it. The laughter got louder, but it was what came next that made my blood run cold. My cousin looked directly at the camera, though he clearly didn't realize he was recording, and made a comment about how they'd figured out the perfect system. Whenever any of them needed money, they'd just call me with some sob story about unexpected expenses or temporary hardships. He said I fell for it every single time, like clockwork. My uncle raised his bottle in a mock toast, calling me their personal ATM. My brother suggested they should start charging me a convenience fee for letting me feel useful. The whole room dissolved into laughter again. Then my cousin delivered the line that would replay in my head for weeks. Freeloader? Please, he's just our wallet. The video ended abruptly, probably when someone realized the phone was still recording. A few minutes later, my cousin posted a message in the chat saying his phone had glitched and accidentally shared a random video. He asked everyone to ignore it, but I had already watched it 3 times. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at my phone screen. The family chat showed that 12 people had seen the video before it was deleted, but no one had said anything about its content. They were all just going along with the glitch story. I scrolled back through months of messages, seeing everything differently now. Every time someone had reached out for help, every family emergency that required immediate financial assistance, every sob story about unexpected bills, it all took on a new meaning. My uncle's mortgage payment when he was temporarily laid off. My cousin's car repair when her engine suddenly died. My brother's credit card debt when he miscalculated his budget. The family vacation fund that everyone contributed to, except somehow I ended up covering most of it. The wedding gift that turned into me paying for the entire bachelor party. Over the past 2 years, I calculated I'd given or lent family members close to $40,000. Money I'd worked 60-hour weeks to earn. Money I'd saved by living modestly while they enjoyed lifestyles they couldn't afford. And not once, had any of them paid me back without being asked. Most of the time, I didn't even ask. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to call them out immediately, to screenshot the video before they realized I'd seen it and demand an explanation. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the betrayal cutting too deep for immediate anger, or maybe it was the businessman in me recognizing an opportunity. That night, I went through my financial records methodically. I documented every loan, every gift, every time I'd covered someone's expenses. I organized it all in a spreadsheet, complete with dates, amounts, and the stories they'd told me to justify the requests. The pattern was impossible to ignore. My uncle had been getting regular, emergency payments for over a year. My cousin had borrowed money for 4 separate car repairs in 8 months. My brother had needed help with rent 6 times in the past year, always with a different excuse. They had turned manipulating me into an art form. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the realization that every family gathering, every phone call, every interaction had been tainted by their deception. When they laughed at my jokes, were they genuine? When they asked about my life, Did they actually care? Or was I just the mark they needed to keep happy? I decided to find out. The next morning, I opened a new bank account and transferred most of my available funds into it. I left just enough in my main accounts to cover my own expenses. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 days later, my uncle called. He launched into a familiar routine about unexpected medical bills and how his insurance wasn't covering everything he'd hoped. He needed $2,000 to cover the gap, just temporarily, until his next paycheck. I listened to his performance with new ears. The carefully crafted pauses, the way he emphasized his desperation while maintaining just enough pride to make it seem like asking for help was difficult for him. It was masterful, really. I told him I was sorry to hear about his situation, but I was dealing with some unexpected expenses myself and couldn't help this time. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds before he quickly wrapped up the conversation. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with messages. My cousin needed help with her rent. Apparently her roommate had moved out suddenly. My brother's car had broken down and he needed money for repairs to get to work. I gave them all the same response. Sorry, can't help right now. Going through some financial challenges myself. The requests became more frequent and more desperate over the following weeks. Stories became more elaborate, emergencies more urgent. My uncle claimed his electricity was about to be shut off. My cousin said she might lose her apartment. My brother mentioned having to choose between groceries and gas money. Each time, I expressed sympathy and explained that I simply couldn't help. I was always vague about my own financial situation, mentioning unexpected expenses and cash flow issues without providing details. The family chat, which had always been active with daily conversations and shared photos, began to quiet down. My responses to group messages became shorter and less frequent, though I never stopped participating entirely. I needed them to think everything was normal, that I was just going through a rough patch. About a month after I'd seen the video, my uncle called again. This time, his tone was different. Less performative, more genuinely stressed. He told me his mortgage payment was overdue and the bank had sent a notice. He needed $3,000 immediately, or he risked foreclosure proceedings. I told him I understood how stressful that must be, but I was still dealing with my own financial situation and couldn't help. He pressed harder this time, reminding me how family was supposed to support each other, how he'd always been there for me growing up. The manipulation was more direct now, less subtle. He was getting desperate. I maintained my position, apologizing again, but explaining that I simply didn't have the resources to help anyone right now. After I hung up, I sat in my home office looking at my financial spreadsheets. The money I'd previously been giving away was accumulating nicely in my new accounts. For the first time in years, I was actually building substantial savings instead of subsidizing other people's lifestyles. But the real test came 6 weeks later. My cousin called, crying. Real tears this time, not the manufactured emotion I'd heard so many times before. Her car had been repossessed, she explained. She'd missed too many payments and now she couldn't get to work. Without transportation, she'd lose her job, which meant she couldn't make her rent. The domino effect was starting to show. She begged me to help her get the car back. The total amount needed was $8,000, more than she'd ever asked for before. She promised to pay me back in installments, swore this would be the last time she'd ever need help. I listened to her desperation and felt something I hadn't expected, satisfaction. I told her I was truly sorry about her situation, but I was still unable to help financially. I suggested she might want to consider getting a loan from a bank or asking other family members for assistance. The conversation ended badly. She accused me of abandoning the family, of being selfish and heartless. She said she never would have expected this from me, that she was disappointed in who I'd become. I almost laughed at the irony. The family group chat exploded that evening. Messages flew back and forth about my cousin's situation, with various family members expressing concern and sympathy. Several people mentioned that they wished they could help, but were struggling financially themselves. Nobody directly asked me to contribute, but the pressure was there. Subtle comments about how some people in the family had been more fortunate than others, how those who could afford to help should step up during difficult times. I responded with general supportive messages, expressing hope that things would work out for my cousin while maintaining that I was still dealing with my own financial challenges. 3 months after seeing the video, the consequences were cascading through the family. My uncle's house went into foreclosure proceedings. My cousin lost her apartment and had to move back in with her parents. My brother's credit cards were maxed out, and he was facing collection calls. The family dynamics shifted dramatically. The group chat became tense, with people snapping at each other over minor issues. Family gatherings were postponed or canceled due to various financial crises. The easy camaraderie that had existed when money flowed freely from me to them evaporated. But the most interesting change was in how they treated me. Without my financial support to rely on, they had to interact with me differently. The performative affection disappeared, replaced by a cooler distance. Phone calls became infrequent and brief. Invitations to family events dried up. It was like watching a mask slip away, revealing what had been underneath all along. Update 1. 6 months after everything started, my brother showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked terrible, thinner than I'd seen him, wearing clothes that had seen better days. He said he needed to talk. We sat in my living room, and he told me about his situation. The financial spiral had gotten worse. His credit was destroyed, he'd been evicted from his apartment, and he was staying on friends' couches. He'd lost weight because he was skipping meals to save money. Then he did something I hadn't expected. He apologized. He told me he knew I'd seen the video. He said they'd all figured it out when I suddenly stopped being their bank, as he put it. He admitted that they'd taken advantage of my generosity, that they'd started seeing me as a resource instead of a person. He said the family was falling apart without my financial support, but more importantly, they'd realized how much they'd damaged their relationships with me. He wasn't just asking for money, though he clearly needed it. He was asking for forgiveness. I listened to everything he said, watching his face carefully for signs of manipulation. But this felt different from all the previous conversations. The desperation was real, but so was the remorse. I asked him about the others. Were they planning to apologize too, or was he here on his own? He admitted that the family was split. Some people thought they should reach out to me and try to make things right. Others were angry, feeling like I'd abandoned them when they needed me most. My uncle, in particular, blamed me for his foreclosure, claiming that if I'd helped him with just one more payment, he could have gotten back on his feet. My brother said he'd volunteered to come talk to me because he felt the most guilty. He'd been the one laughing loudest at my expense in that video, making jokes about how naive I was. I told him I appreciated his honesty, but I needed time to think about everything. After he left, I found myself genuinely conflicted for the first time since this all began. The revenge had been satisfying, but watching my family self-destruct was harder than I'd expected. These weren't strangers who had wronged me. They were people I'd grown up with, people who had been part of my life for decades. But then I remembered the laughter in that video, the casual cruelty of their jokes, the years of manipulation disguised as family bonds. Update 2. 2 weeks later, I made my decision. I called my brother and told him I was willing to meet with the entire family to discuss the situation. But there were conditions. Everyone who had received money from me over the past 2 years had to be present, and I wanted complete honesty about what had been going on. The meeting was held at my uncle's house, the same house that was now in foreclosure. The atmosphere was tense from the moment I walked in. Some family members couldn't even look at me directly. I started by acknowledging that I'd seen the video and knew about their true feelings toward my financial help. I explained that I'd deliberately stopped helping to see what would happen, and that the results had confirmed my suspicions about their motivations. My cousin, the one who had originally sent the video, tried to defend their actions. She said they never meant to hurt me, that they were just venting frustrations and didn't really mean what they'd said. She claimed the video was taken out of context. I pulled out my laptop and showed them my spreadsheet. Every loan, every gift, every financial favor over the past 2 years, totaling just over $42,000. I pointed out that only about $3,000 had been repaid, and only after multiple requests from me. The room went quiet as they absorbed the numbers. Then I made my proposal. I was willing to help them one final time, but not with direct financial assistance. Instead, I would work with each of them to create realistic budgets and financial plans. I would help them negotiate with creditors and find legitimate sources of credit. I would provide financial education and ongoing support as they rebuilt their lives. But there would be no more handouts, no more emergency loans, no more playing the role of family ATM. And most importantly, our relationships would need to be rebuilt on honest foundations. No more manipulation, no more performative affection designed to keep the money flowing. Some family members accepted immediately. My brother was the first to agree, saying he was grateful for any help and that he deserved the conditions I was setting. Two of my cousins also accepted. Others were less receptive. My uncle accused me of being vindictive and holding past mistakes over everyone's heads. He said that family should help family unconditionally, and that my conditions proved I'd never really cared about any of them. I told him he was right about one thing: I had stopped caring about them. But not because I was vindictive. I'd stopped caring because I'd realized they'd never really cared about me. Update 3. It's been a year now since the video that changed everything. My brother has been working with a financial counselor I helped him find, and he's slowly rebuilding his credit. He got a second job and moved into a small but decent apartment. Most importantly, our relationship feels genuine for the first time in years. We talk regularly, but our conversations are about his life, my work, shared interests, not financial emergencies. Two of my cousins have also made significant progress. One of them actually paid me back $1,500 she'd borrowed 2 years ago, without me even asking for it. She said it was important to her to clear that debt as part of rebuilding our relationship. My uncle never accepted my conditions. His house went into foreclosure, and he had to move in with other relatives. He's made it clear that he blames me for his situation and refuses to speak to me. Some other family members have sided with him, creating a permanent rift in the family. The cousin who sent the original video tried to rebuild our relationship for a while, but it never felt authentic. She seemed more interested in getting back to the old dynamic than in creating something honest and new. Eventually, we stopped talking altogether. The family group chat still exists, but it's much smaller now and the conversations are different. Less frequent, more genuine. We share actual news about our lives instead of manufactured crises designed to generate sympathy and financial support. I've been able to save more money in the past year than in the previous 3 years combined. I'm planning a vacation to Europe, something I'd never been able to afford when I was supporting multiple family members' lifestyles. But the most valuable thing I gained wasn't financial. I learned the difference between being generous and being taken advantage of. I learned that true family relationships should be built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not financial dependency. And I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their poor decisions. The revenge was satisfying, but it wasn't really about punishment. It was about revealing the truth of what our relationships had become. Some family members were able to handle that truth and build something better. Others weren't. I don't regret my decision to stop being their wallet. The family that remains in my life now is smaller, but it's real. And that's worth more than any amount of money I used to give away. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my cousin hadn't accidentally sent that video. Would I have continued subsidizing their lives indefinitely, never realizing how they really felt about me? The thought is both terrifying and oddly liberating. That accidental recording was the best mistake anyone ever made for me. It freed me from relationships that were slowly poisoning my life, and it forced the people who truly cared about me to prove it. In the end, the most expensive lesson I ever learned turned out to be the most valuable one too.